from really Chicago to the south, midway less than half a mile. And these are just where we get our weather reports from. So these are some of the sites that are out there documenting temperature, humidity, visibility. However, in between these markers, we definitely have seen the visibility drop less than a quarter of a mile at times. Satellite radar, we've been keeping our eye on this. Satellite in particular, we're beginning to lose some of that sunlight, but just about 3-4 hours ago, you could see the bright whites. Those are storms, but the striations that are moving into parts of our southern counties as we zoom on in, if you look very closely here, that is dust being picked up by satellite, and taking a look at how far it's been transported, already over 80 miles this dust has traveled. So a remarkable system here, but everyone needs to be alert. Looking out at the windows of Chicago right now, seeing the visibility drop, it almost looks like fog is rolling off of the lake, a dark fog that's dropping visibility here in the city, but not the case. It's actually that dust, blowing dust across parts of the region. A blowing dust advisory remains in effect until 9 p.m. Wind advisory here until midnight. The red flag warning has been lifted, so that is good news. And just such an interesting weather situation from yesterday when we had record heat with highs in the 90s and those storms moving through. It was warm, it was humid, and then a front pushed through, and then a much drier air mass moved in overnight and into our area today. And we combine that with very dry conditions. We've had very little rainfall out there, so you have to think about all of the open land and all of the dust and all of the fields. Everything has been so dry, and that allows for that dust to just get picked up, that dirt to get picked up and be blown around. And in fact, we are so low in terms of precipitation for this month, below average by over 2 inches. Not only do we have the dust, but we also have a severe thunderstorm watch across parts of our southern counties. But really where we're finding the rain right now, and what's really interesting, someone noted with the National Weather Service, is that it looks like it's raining dirt and mud out there because the rain is coming down, but we have the particles of dirt and dust in the atmosphere. So it's almost like it's raining dirty outside. Unfortunately, that is the situation that we are seeing. So many different weather elements at play right now, but you can see the isolated nature of these storms from northern DuPage County up towards Lake, and then an isolated severe storm back to the west. So we are monitoring a lot. I know a lot of updates coming in from the National Weather Service. We have a lot of storm spotters out there as well. We have team coverage with you here tonight. Larry, you're with me. We are tracking something that we don't normally track in our region. I have to say, this is the first time I'm seeing a cloud of dust move into the city of Chicago.
It's incredible, Cheryl. You know, I just looking out on State Street, that's of course Wacker there in the river, and it is so murky out there. And this is the dust at O'Hare now, visibility down to less than a mile. This is 294, and I believe that's close to Manheim Road here too, or right over where the Chicago Dogs have their baseball games. And look how murky the sky is. And this is the story pretty much wherever you go across Cook County now and across the city, as this dust has lifted northward really rapidly. And it's really caused slowdowns on the highway too. A lot of the roads are reporting really high travel times because of the reduced visibility. I was talking with Judy Sue, texting back and forth, who was on the Eisenhower, and she was telling me that she could see about 5 to maybe 10 cars in front of her, but not any farther than that. And they were going about 5 to 10 miles per hour, which is kind of a typical speed on the Eisenhower this time of day, or at least about an hour ago. But still, nonetheless, slow travel times out there because of this dense dust that's with us. Let me go to the maps here, and I want to show you a visible satellite image from the sky looking down at the dust. This was about an hour or so ago. And what this shows us is this little brown area here, that's the dust that was lifting from south to north across the area. The whites are cloud cover. But what this image really shows us is that right here on the leading edge of the dust cloud, which at this point had not yet made it to the city, this is where the thickest of the dust is located. It kind of thins out once the dust moves overhead. It's almost like a big surge of dust hitting you, and then you're in it for a good 15 to 30 minutes, and then the dust kind of settles out and it's not as thick as what you get with that initial burst. Also, what's happening with this initial burst is we're getting winds upwards of 60 miles per hour as that initial wave of dust hits you. I was just talking about Judy Sue, texting with her back and forth. We got her on the phone right now. Hey, Judy, are you home yet? Judy, can you hear me?
You okay?
Judy, can you hear me?
Larry, can you hear me?
I got you now. Tell me your experience driving in this.
Okay, so I am still in the car. We are still driving on I-290 going west. The visibility, I just have to say, everybody is safe right now. It's still okay, but it is pretty wild. Larry, you would tell me before I left the station, obviously everybody on the road is just trying to make it home on a Friday evening, that the visibility would be reducing, and it certainly has. It feels like, let me tell you, first of all, we're going maybe about 10 miles an hour right now on the road. Very windy. I can see the trees really moving in this wind. I used to work in Southern California and covered wildfires. So if you've ever been in one, it feels like I'm sort of driving through those conditions. Very smoky, but you can still see. I can see a good 10, 15 car lengths in front of me. Couple of cars are pulled over. Not many, but I'm driving by a couple of cars that are pulled over. But you can still see ahead of you. The sky is sort of a very milky, various shade of brown. Again, it feels like you're driving through a fire that is burning somewhere around you. I can't recall the last time I've had these driving conditions, Larry.
And Judy, when you started out leaving from downtown, was the dust there yet, or did it hit you when you were on the highway?
No, when I first got on the road, it was right after the 6 o'clock news, so around maybe a little 6:35, 6:40. It was still relatively, I wouldn't call it clear. It was a bit milky. It was just kind of an odd shade in the sky, but a bright kind of milkiness. The more that I was heading west on the Eisenhower, the darker kind of it got, and you can see that shade of brown start to kind of flow in. It is very bizarre.
And then when it hit you, did the winds really pick up?
Yes. And I don't know how strong the winds are, but you can feel it in the car. But I certainly, even right now, I can see it, the trees, the big trees swaying in this wind.
It was remarkable. You know, that leading edge of the dust, Judy, we had a gust to 60 miles per hour at Midway with that initial leading burst of dust. And I'm sure you experienced that when you were driving on the Eisenhower.
Yeah, so it feels like as I'm continuing to move in the westerly direction, it feels like it's clearing just a little bit, I hope.
Yeah, that's a great point, because we were showing cameras while we're talking with you right now from around the area. We were showing a camera down by New Lenox, which we showed during the 6 o'clock news. That was the camera where we saw that initial line of dust come through. And so here's this camera again. We're showing our people who are streaming us right now this camera from New Lenox, and it looks, I mean, it's murky, but it looks so much better than it did during the 6 o'clock news. And I think that's the experience with this dust storm. The initial burst is really very poor visibility with high winds, and then it kind of settles down and you're just left in the murkiness. So I think that's probably what you're experiencing, Judy.
That's a good way of describing it. Yeah, it is murky, but it feels like it's a little less murky than I was just even 5-6 minutes ago. And we were asking you on the 6 o'clock news, Larry, about the last time that we've seen conditions like those. I don't remember having to drive in a dust storm here in the Chicago area.
Yeah, it's incredible, isn't it? I mean, we had record heat yesterday, storms last night, dust storm today, and more storms kind of bubbling up this evening as well. So a potpourri of weather the past 48 hours, that's for sure, Judy.
And Judy,
really
Cheryl here.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Hi.
Hi.
Yes.
Hopefully everything's going well for you and getting out of that dust. I want to know what it was like with the other drivers around you, because I know you were in the studio with us, so you knew what was happening. But did it seem like everyone was getting caught off guard? Was traffic still moving okay?
Very good point. I did feel like a lot of people were caught off guard. There were a lot of tapping on the brakes. Certainly that's a good thing. But yes, I
think we just lost Judy. That's okay. She gave us so much good information. And Larry, it's good to note during a situation like this, I know Judy just got through the worst of it, but if you're driving and you're out there and you get caught in one of these dust storms, the best thing is to pull to the side, put your hazards on, and wait for conditions to improve. It's not something you want to be driving through when visibilities are so low for yourself and for other drivers on the road as well.
And fortunately, I think what is happening too, as this dust hits more the city with the concrete and the buildings and whatnot, it's not picking up additional dust like it was downstate. So it's obviously really thick here across the city, but if we were in the middle of an open field that had just been planted and it was picking up more dust, these high winds, the visibility would be even worse than it is right now. So that's kind of the experience. By just looking on the sidewalk here, you can still see up and down State Street pretty easily, and you can still see the buildings here across Grant Park from across the way. So, it's not like the visibility is down to nothing when you're walking downtown, but in some of those outlying areas like you're talking about, Cheryl, that visibility can really drop off, especially if you're near an open field that still has dirt on it, because a lot of areas didn't get a lot of rain last night either. So there's the blowing dust from some of the fields as well.
Yeah, and I think we have Trey Ward on the phone as well. He's in Palos Park. Trey, can you hear us? Okay, I think we're working on getting Trey joining us from Palos Park. I can say also I have a close friend that just landed at O'Hare, and they're sending videos from the O'Hare airport, and it just looks like a complete, almost no visibility in that location. It's so dark. It looks like just a storm's moving in, but it's just dust all around. So I'm wondering how the airports are handling this. Major delays at this point, I would suspect. Just a really interesting event for us as we continue to monitor this dust moving in. You can see that live shot from the city right now. We have some visibility, but in the distance, you can clearly see that dropping off. So about a half-mile visibility right now in the city. The dust continuing to move its way across parts of northern Illinois, with the dust storm warning still in effect until 8:30. Okay, let's switch over to O'Hare. Like I said, good friend just landed there, and you can just see cars moving okay, so that's good, but just really interesting because I'm sure a lot of folks are saying, what is going on? And in fact, so many people getting that alert on their phone saying a dust storm warning now in effect. Just dropping that visibility across the area. In the distance, those lights on the cars are beginning to fade. The good news is once we get into about the next 30 to 45 minutes, we'll start to see some of this dust disperse and conditions will improve, and we are seeing that to the south. So there are signs of the dust lifting a bit, but for now, the dust storm warning here in Chicago will remain in effect until 8:30. So just really, really interesting in terms of the world of weather and meteorology. Here's that dust storm warning map, and you can see now for parts of northern Will, Cook County, back towards DuPage, Kane, but this was issued for our counties to the south, and that has since been lifted because conditions improving. So that dust is lifting up to the north. No warning has been issued for Lake and McHenry. We'll continue to monitor for that. But what's also really interesting is that we've been getting some isolated rain showers and storms. So that's another element in the madness of this weather this evening. Not only are we getting the dust area-wide dropping the visibility, but also the rain and the storms now forming in parts of northern Cook as well as Lake. So I would imagine the rain right now that's happening in parts of Lake and northern Cook will keep some of that dust down, and the visibility won't drop as bad. However, with that said, it's going to be raining with that dust in the atmosphere, so it's going to be messy out there. Okay, we do have Trey on the phone now. Trey, can you hear us?
I sure can. Hi.
Hi, you're in Palos Park right now, so give us, talk to us about where you are, what you're seeing, the environment in your region right now.
Yeah, well, right now it seems like the worst is over, at least where we're at in Palos Park. We're at 123rd and 86th Avenue. We were actually checking out a different story when we literally looked up into the sky and saw what looked like brown dust. It was coming toward us, and it happened within minutes. As soon as it kind of swept through, you can feel the wind. You can feel like the gravel in your eyes. We went into our cars as it swept through, but much of that we captured on our cameras as it came through. You could see the wind blowing, the trees blowing, and that brown dusty color kind of just coming through. Once again, it kind of took just a few minutes as it came through, but not much impact, at least from what we're seeing. Some branches, and again, you felt the gravel in your eyes, but at the same time, there were kids playing at a nearby ice cream parlor while it was sweeping through too. But even at that same time, as it was coming through, at least what felt like the worst of it, we were kind of just laying low in the car as it kind of came through. But you can kind of see instantly the area kind of turning into that brown color. I've never really seen it before, but looking up into the sky, it looked ominous. It changed in color, kind of, but you can feel it in your eyes. You can feel it on your skin as it was coming through, and really something I've never really experienced before.
And Trey, you have been there from start to finish, and you were talking about the worst of it. Can you give us a sense of time on how long the worst of it was for you in Palos Park?
Really, like 3 minutes. It came and went.
Okay.
As we were looking at it, where we were at, we can feel the wind kind of picking up, and it kind of got our attention. We saw the brown sky and just knew instantly that what was coming towards us. We were getting notifications from our producers to take shelter if needed. And when it came through, it took about a few minutes. And now we're looking at what looks to be blue skies in the area. Again, we're in Palos Park at 123rd and 86th Avenue. Kind of a bit windy, but definitely not what it was about 30 or so minutes ago.
Okay.
Hey Trey, quick question for you. This is Larry here. Does it smell like anything? Is there like an earthy smell or anything? Did your sense of smell pick up anything?
Yeah, you could definitely smell the dirt and feel it in your eyes and feel it hitting your skin as it was coming through. It wasn't just your normal wind and maybe like some branches here and there. You can feel it. You couldn't really, as far as like seeing the bits of rocks, you couldn't see it, but I could definitely feel it hitting my skin. I've wiped my eyes since I've been out here. So and you can feel what smelled like some type of gravel, and again, it went through just a few minutes. Right now is blue skies, kind of traffic is moving normally while they're dealing with this other situation here. But yeah, within minutes, and it was over.
That's really good insight, and good to know for so many that are getting caught in the thick of it that it's not going to be lasting too long, and we're seeing those alerts where you are and just to the south being lifted. So thankfully, the dust isn't lingering too long. This is just a brief period where the dust is moving in, it's dropping visibility, and then it's traveling on and away. And we are seeing it's crazy that you're going from the dark, ominous conditions and then back to blue skies in just a matter of minutes with this rolling through. Truly, truly remarkable.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Cheryl and Trey, just to add to that too, you're talking about how things have improved to the south. The only areas that are under dust storm warnings right now are central and northern Cook County, DuPage County. So the warnings have been dropped for areas from southern Cook County and southward. And that's kind of what we expected as this came through. You get the initial burst of high, thick dust that lasts, as Trey was mentioning, a few minutes. Then you're still in some dust for another 15 to 30 minutes or so, and then visibility improves, but you're left with the murkiness like we're seeing. And now the dust storm warning continues until 8:30 here for this shaded area in orange, but that'll be canceled probably before 8:30 because the dust will kind of settle out. It may expand northward up into parts of Lake County, but as Cheryl was mentioning, we've got some showers and thunderstorms up that way, which we had a report coming in of mud rain of all things because of the rain combining with the dust storm and creating almost like a mud filter that lands on the cars and the sidewalks. You can see the showers and thunderstorms here across DuPage County, northern Cook County, up into Lake County, some of them pretty heavy, even producing some gusty winds and some small hail. But it's going to be one of those situations where the rain will kind of tamper down the dust situation. You're probably going to need a car wash this weekend, even if you're not in the rain, because the dust that's blowing in is probably making your cars rather dusty that are sitting outside. And these showers and thunderstorms, there is a concern for some severe weather for the next couple of hours as more of these storms kind of percolate up. The severe weather threat is relatively low, but we'll keep an eye on them because we could get some high winds and some small hail with some of these storms. And we do have, they dropped the severe thunderstorm watch. That just happened in the past few moments. So there was a severe thunderstorm watch down here to the south. That's been dropped. Cheryl, that's great news.
That is great news. And we were discussing that because we were seeing the storms and we were assessing the atmosphere and the environment, and we were seeing those storms move away from us. So happy to see that that alert has expired across the area. I want to take you to a satellite right now. I did take radar off, and this was at 6 o'clock, and I just have this pause. So this is cloud cover, and this is from the storms that were moving through. But there you can see that dust that began to travel up from the south here, that striation. So all of this dust thick enough for satellites to pick up on this, and we can get that with visible imagery. And just putting this into motion, you can see it traveling from Ford, Iroquois, parts of central Illinois, all the way up through our southern counties, crossing. There's that dust over I-80 making its way up into the city, and then we begin to lose some of that visible imagery because the sun is setting, but traveling close to 100 miles across our region, that dust. So truly, truly, truly remarkable. The good news is that we are beginning to see conditions improve out there. I do want to go back and take a look at our current wind gusts just to get an update here, because just about an hour ago or 45 minutes ago, wind gusts up were to 60 miles per hour, Midway down to 48, but that is still extremely windy out there. So we have the dust, we have the strong winds, it's dropping visibility out there. And as we take a look at visibility, it's improving maybe just a bit, but still less than a mile visibility being reported here in the city, O'Hare, Aurora, Midway. I just got video in from O'Hare and getting reports that there's just a lot of delays on the board, and a lot of planes that thought that they were going to be taking off are now returning to the gate at this point in time. So the delays will be there for a short period of time because of this dust and the reduced visibility across the region. So we take you to the O'Hare camera. Yeah, here we go.
On the visibility reports there's O'Hare camera, but I also want to show you the visibility reports here. So these are the current visibilities, as Cheryl was mentioning, a mile in O'Hare and Midway. Let me show you a 4-hour time lapse here of the visibility. So we had good visibility around 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and then here comes the dust. And watch the visibilities drop and then improve down to the south. So we'll run through this again. So watch Kankakee here drop down to about 1.25 miles or so, and then it improves back up to 10 miles of visibility. And that'll be happening here across Midway and Joliet and Morris as this dust kind of settles out. So this kind of reiterates our point we've been making about how you're in the thick of it for a good 30 minutes, maybe as long as an hour, with the real worst of it lasting about 15 minutes or so. And then it slowly improves as you go through the rest of the evening. And that's going to be the story here with this dust that's pushing on through. And Cheryl, I was looking at the air quality reports. So far, they're in the moderate range. So even though we got a lot of dust in the air, I'm not seeing the air quality go down too far. It's in the moderate range, which is, pretty typical on a day like today where it's extremely hot outside. We had temperatures well into the 80s. So it's pretty usual to get moderate air quality reports on a day like today when it is really hot outside. We still have the wind advisory until midnight, and those winds are still gusting 40 to 50 miles per hour. And what I'm noticing here out to the west is a shift in the winds to more westerly. And so once that westerly wind makes it across the city, that's going to help flush any dust that's in the atmosphere off towards the east. So if you're up in the northern parts of Cook County and Lake County, you're going to start to see that wind shift very shortly, and it'll push that dust out over the lake, and even down to the south later this evening. That westerly wind will kick in and kind of flush out the atmosphere a little bit. Temperatures are going to get cool tonight. Right now we're in the upper 70s, even some 80s left over. And again, that severe thunderstorm watch is canceled down to the south, but we are watching a couple of thunderstorms in northern Cook County, DuPage County and Lake County. And there's the wind shift line, this little thin green line right there. That's the front that's coming through, that's shifting the winds out of the west, and that'll be the front that brings in the cooler air tonight and flushes out the atmosphere. So tomorrow morning, Cheryl, we'll wake up, we'll have temperatures in the 40s and 50s, and the air will feel and almost feel more cleaner and even smell better for us tomorrow morning than it does right now.
Yeah, and you mentioned a car wash earlier today. I almost got my car wash today, and now I'm so grateful that I didn't. But
do it tomorrow.
So many people did, because I can tell you those lines were so incredibly long, and now everyone's like, wait, what? But also, Larry, just stay with me, because a lot of people are asking what caused this. This is something that we typically don't see here in the city limits of Chicago, but we were talking about the storms yesterday. We were in record heat, record warmth. We had dew points in the 60s to near 70. It's May. That's humid for this time. And then we had a front move through, and take a look at our dew points now. We're down into the 40s and 50s. So we had this warm, moist air that was replaced with this dry air mass. It was very warm out there today. And then we also had strong gusty winds. But then on top of that, we had those strong thunderstorms that developed to the south of us earlier today. And that really helped kick things up across parts of central and southern Illinois. And a lot of that kicked up a lot of that dirt. So if we can go to satellite and radar here just quickly, and I want to put this on a loop so you can get an idea of these storms that we were tracking earlier today. This is over the last 6 hours as I put this into play, and you're going to see these storms well downstate. And this is basically where that dust started to really pop off from these storms as that moved through. So these storms really aided in that dust being lifted, and then it was transported so easily because the air mass is so dry to the north, as well as those high winds that we've had throughout the day. So consistent, steady, high gusty winds from the south blowing all of that dust up to the north. And we weren't expecting a dust storm of this magnitude, but we were talking yesterday about the strong gusty winds, the fire danger threat, and the potential for some dust out there to be blowing around. But a dust storm of this magnitude is really hard to forecast for because you have so many elements and ingredients that need to come together to create something of this magnitude. And that's exactly what happened out there today.
And it has to be this time of year too, Cheryl, or even in the fall after the crops have been harvested, because the farmland is still kind of barren. The crops have been planted and some of them have sprouted up, obviously, but there's still a lot of open dirt on the fields across central and western parts of Illinois. Obviously here in the metro area, we don't have many fields that are bare, but once you get out of the metro area, it really is farmland country, and that's where the ground is still very bare. And as a kid who grew up working on my grandparents' farm, you know, this is the worst thing when you see the dust being blown away. That's your liquid gold or your ground gold going away from you. That's what you need on your farm. So this is not good for the farmers, obviously, and it also causes headaches for the dust coming through parts of the area. Yeah. I think we have Ravi Baishwal. Is that who we have on the phone right now? Oh, he's live. Hey, Ravi, you're along the lakefront. Give me set the scene for me.
Hey, listen, Larry, great job, and Cheryl, we're hustled out here in Storm Tracker, and we didn't have to actually go very far to see the evidence of this dust storm coming into downtown. So where I am right now is out by the Adler Planetarium in the museum campus. The planetarium is just to over here to the east, to my left, and the nice shot there from our cameraman Stephen Borg. And now you're looking, if you can see it, can you see the city skyline? It's right there. We're looking northwest into the city, and this is normally such a gorgeous view, and we can see it kind of in an opaque way. I can tell you this haze that's out here is something, to be quite honest, that I've really never experienced. Not like this. Usually it would be heavier. It doesn't feel too much. I can feel a little bit of grittiness in my eyes, but a little less than I expected to feel. But the haze, the dust is covering all of the lakefront, as you can see right there, not seeming to bother families that are out here tonight enjoying what was supposed to be a very nice night. As I look to the southern skies over there, I can see, turn right around there, Steve, you can see the sunshine starting to try to pull its way in here. Maybe it's the back end of the dust storm. It's up to you guys to determine that. But you can see the cloud tops. There's a little bit of hint of sunshine. But when you look back north this way and look back to the city and you look at the skyline, you're going to see perfect evidence of how big and how widespread this dust storm is. We came out of our station at State and Lake. We went across east on Lake and then down Michigan Avenue. And as soon as we turned south on Michigan Avenue, we were absolutely inundated with how much dust there was. Couldn't see more than 2 or 3 blocks to the south. Typically, you could see from around where our station is down towards the big Hilton Hotel. Could not see that at all. Couldn't see anything approaching the museum campus. And the wind out here, as you can see, not pushing us around too much, but it's enough that you have to kind of stabilize. And yeah, let's get our weather covered there. Watch out for this little piece here. You have to stabilize out here. The wind coming in a little bit in kind of gusts, as you say, but definitely a weather happening that is notable. But as I said, as I look around, take a look at this family over here and other families as well. Not seeming to bother a lot of people. It's not like they're running for cover or anything else.
And Ravi, you've been in Chicago for how many, 20 years now, 20 plus years or so? Have you ever seen it like this?
Yep. You know what? One of the greatest things that working at ABC7 is how much I learn about weather, how much we talk about weather.
Love us.
Relative to my friends, I am a total weather nerd now because of you guys, and I still haven't even seen this. And it really is amazing. I remember, blizzards and storms and ice storms and all the rest of it. This is just another thing, like another terminology. I think, did you use the term haboob earlier? I don't know if this is like that, but it is something entirely different. And as you can see that I'm squinting, it's partly because of the wind, but it's partly because the tiny little bit of grit that I can feel. Although I must say, given how hazy and cloudy it looks out there, I was expecting it to feel a lot grittier out here. Now that might be the case if I was near an open field as opposed to open water, but it is something. And like I said, it's time to brace yourself a little bit here, because it feels like it could turn into a very mean night very quickly.
Well, the good news is that that's not going to happen. We're pretty much seeing the worst of it right now, and that will continue to lift. But Larry, you were also talking about that term haboob. A lot of folks are probably like, what is that? And you worked out in parts of the South and West, and that's just the term that's given to a large dust storm and meteorological event that is more typical of an area or region that would be more prone to it, like the desert Southwest, because of those extreme dry conditions. Did you experience anything like this out there? And can you relate the two in any way?
I worked in Dallas, Fort Worth, and in West Texas, there are scenes that kind of look like this from Lockport. This is from one of our ABC7 employees, Dave Mason, who was down in Lockport, shot this video. And this is what you'd see more in West Texas, this wall of dust coming towards you. And this, we don't know if this will be classified as a haboob, because in order for it to be classified as a haboob, it has to be kicked off by a thunderstorm. And a lot of these winds are just because of the synoptic winds, which are just the general wind pattern of the day, kicking up the dust. So I don't think we can classify this as directly as a haboob, but it basically looks like it with this wall of dust coming at you. And I've seen this many times in Fort Worth and areas west of Fort Worth, out towards like Abilene, Amarillo, Lubbock. They get these all the time. In fact, there's a saying in West Texas, if the wind's 35 miles per hour, that's a calm day, because the winds are always gusting out in West Texas. And for us, we get winds here in this situation where we got the winds up around 40 to 50 miles per hour coming straight out of the south. It just kicked up this dust. It was really quite something to see on the live pictures. And then also this satellite view here too. And Cheryl was showing the satellite in motion. This is a high resolution satellite view looking down from above, and it's colorized so you can see the darker brown shadings, which is the dust. This was about maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours ago, when it was still south of the city. But it just shows the intensity of this dust storm. Right through here was the initial leading edge of it, and it was quite thick, and then it kind of thins out as you get into the heart of the dust storm. But that leading edge just hit us, and it dropped the visibility, the winds kicked up, and then we're just kind of now in the murkiness that we're seeing across the area. And at the moment, the visibility has gotten better across most areas. And as I switch over to the current satellite view, it's kind of hard to see because we're losing daylight, but right up here is basically where the dust line is now, moving into Lake County and parts of McHenry County as well. We got Ravi back on the line with us, and Ravi, you're talking to some folks.
Yeah, they're not perturbed by this at all. Take a look at this beautiful family from the suburbs. This is Amin and his two boys, Tariq and Salah. You're out here. This is a dust storm. It's come up quite quickly. What's it like for you to be out here with your family?
It's not that bad. It's something that we didn't expect to happen. So we also, something that I've never experienced in my life. So we're like, let's go out and actually see what it's like. And it wasn't too bad. It's actually pretty nice out here.
So you chose to bring the family down here and experience this. So what's it feel like to you?
It's pretty nice. It actually cooled down the weather. It's very hot today, but yeah, they're having a blast, these two.
When you look back, when you look back at the city skyline like that and you see it covered in dust like that, isn't it incredible, Mother Nature?
Oh yeah, it's a once in a lifetime experience. It's my kids wanted to come out here already, so but to see it like this, it's very nice.
Pretty adventurous souls. Let's talk to the young. Do you have an idea about all this dust down here? What do you think of all that?
Because they're like storm.
They're like stars, like a storm?
Yeah, there's a storm coming.
Wow, it's pretty incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think about all that you see out here?
Bad. It's bad.
It's bad.
Everybody-
Why? Wait, hold on. Is it? Why is it bad?
It's cold.
It's cold. It got cold, right? And it's windy. So anyway, that's the experience. You give the kids an experience. You get to see Mother Nature like this. It's something that they won't forget, right?
Exactly. This is, we're from the Middle East, so this is something that we've seen before over there, but not over here. So it's something.
How does this compare to that from where you've been from?
This is very mild compared to there. There, I mean, it'd get pitch black. You can't even go outside. Whereas this is, it's all right. It's a little dangerous, but it wasn't too bad.
And how long would it last typically, one of these dust storms there?
It could be for multiple hours. This seems like it's already leaving. You can kind of see the sun peeking out behind us, but it doesn't. It's not as bad too, though. So it feels like it's moving. You can tell with the wind.
All right, you're not worried. You have some experience. You're not worried. You have some experience with this. Thank you very much. Blessings to your family. So there's a perspective for you. Someone who's actually dealt with this kind of weather in the Middle East on a regular basis, saying this isn't so bad, but still, it is something quite remarkable to see here in Chicago. And I can tell you guys, I'm starting to feel some raindrops coming down now. And I'm not seeing the clearing skies from the south that I was seeing just a moment ago. But like I said, lots of people out here. We'll go get a little bit more sound, talk to a few more folks, get their impressions on what is shaping up to be a very interesting summer, at least in the weather department. Back to you guys.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ravi. Very interesting. And just getting this information in, it wasn't last year, but back in 2023, May 7th, just checking in with the National Weather Service, we did have a dust storm warning that was issued, but that was for our southern counties and downstate. I remember we had reporters out there covering a pileup on some major highways, but this today is the first ever dust storm warning that has been issued for the city limits of Chicago. So this is definitely an unprecedented, rare event in the terms of weather here in Chicago. So truly,
it was something, Cheryl, it was interesting you say unprecedented, because we were talking with the Weather Service and that was the word they used, and we were like, really unprecedented, but it kind of looks that with the scene we saw. And we got some time-lapse videos, and Cheryl, let's talk through this, because this is a site that downtown Chicago has never seen before, with the rolling dust coming in. Look at it just overtake Grant Park there.
Which is so interesting, because a lot of times when we get these time-lapse videos and we get scenes like this, you would think that this could just be fog rolling off of the lake. We've seen similar instances like this earlier this week. We've had that lake fog, but this is something totally different. And you can tell that just because of how dark it's getting out there, and the particles are a bit larger out there, and just dropping that visibility. It's truly remarkable.
Yeah, it just looks, you can tell it's a little darker brown and grayer than fog is. And so it's not as pretty as fog rolling in, that's for sure. I think we got another time lapse too. This is from the old Hancock building looking north. So let's roll this time lapse and have a peek at what it shows. What will be interesting to see is how thick the dust is. There you can kind of see it in some of the buildings. This one's not as dramatic as that other one was. But I imagine the thickness
It's still
of this.
giving you some imagery there.
Yeah. I imagine the thickness of the dust. I mean, it's hard to speculate because we can't really measure it, but I don't think it went too far up into the atmosphere. At least the thickest part of the dust is probably down at the ground level.
Yeah, and it's almost, when it was kicked off, it started as this wall of dust across our southern counties, and then it's not like it stayed in one place and continued to grow. It was almost, it moved as an entity through the region, which is really interesting because it moved through, it hit areas, it became really dark, an area of thick dust, and then we saw gradual clearing in a matter of about 5 to 15 minutes in a lot of locations. So just really interesting, the nature of how all of this happened. But you were talking also about the haboob and getting kicked off with thunderstorms, and I feel that thunderstorms did maybe play a little bit of a factor in this event because we had those strong storms to the south of us, which really helped kick up the winds. I know it's windy area wide, but I mean, some of these storms are packing winds upwards of 60 miles per hour. So a really interesting event. Here's another time lapse that you could see downtown Chicago. and just that visibility dropping there in the background. It never got terribly bad in the city where, you know, folks had to pull over on the sides of the roads, but that's typically more so for those open air areas and fields around crops and farmland and all of that, where it really gets bad in terms of visibility, where it gets to near zero. But
and Tim and Stuart back in the control room, we've shown these time lapse. Can you give us some live pictures now, just to compare to what things look like now? I know the sun's going down, and so we probably have a pretty gorgeous sunset. So that's a live picture, and that looks better than at the end of that time lapse, that's for sure. That's again the Chicago River and Wacker Drive there on the left, and so you can still see the murkiness in the atmosphere. And there's the shed camera, and it does look much better than it did when we were running those time lapses. We got some rain coming into the North Shore and up along the northern parts of Cook County right now. Clouds kind of obscuring the sunset, but if you're away from the city, maybe out in DuPage County, looking at the sunset, there's going to be probably a little orange tint to the atmosphere with some of that dust still in the atmosphere as well. They're going to cancel the dust storm warning for DeKalb, Kane, DuPage, and Cook counties. That's the last of the dust storm warning that's still in effect. Visibility's gone up to 2 miles at Midway and or 2 miles at O'Hare, and Midway's at 1 mile. So no longer meeting the warning criteria. So that's good news there. They've canceled the dust storm warning. So the dust has kind of settled down. It's still obviously murky outside, but once that wind shift line comes in, and if we go to a backup computer here, I'll show you the radar, show you the front that's coming through. Right here, this little thin blue line, that's the cold front that's going to come through and shift winds out of the west and kind of flush out the atmosphere. But there are some showers out ahead of that front, even some lightning strikes occurring in parts of Lake County and northern Cook County. But the overall coverage of rain is pretty low, so we're not really seeing a lot of rain from this, just a few spotty showers. But again, once that front comes through, it'll continue to flush out the atmosphere. But the good news here, Cheryl, is that the dust warnings have been canceled for the entire area.
And that is great news, because everything just kind of fired off at one moment in time, and things became a bit hectic in terms of warnings and watches, and then we had some storms bubble up there. So things are improving out there right now. But one thing that's going to continue here for the next couple of hours and even into the day tomorrow, it's going to stay breezy, but it's still rather windy out there. We have wind gusts up to about 45 to 50 miles per hour. Midway still up to 48. At one point in time, we had a wind gust being measured up to 60 miles per hour. Gary, you're still at 46 miles per hour. These winds will begin to back off, but a wind advisory remains in effect until midnight in this region. Visibility is continuing to improve, so that's why the dust storm warning has been let to expire here. Midway still reporting visibility around 1 mile, O'Hare 2 miles. So we're still seeing the remnants of the dust in the area, but it's certainly not as thick as it was just about an hour ago. Dew points in the 40s and 50s. It was a very a drier air mass in place than yesterday, so that aided in that dust storm potential that we ended up seeing come to fruition this afternoon. Showing you satellite, you can see that dust originating down to the south, really south of Pontiac, Watseka, and then traveling up through parts of Ford, Iroquois counties into Kankakee, and then it continued its way all the way up to the north into the city limits of Chicago. The first ever dust storm warning issued for Cook County ever by the National Weather Service since records go back to date. So Larry was showing this, and there you can see that dust just being picked up on visible satellite and traveling over about 80 to 90 miles. Blowing dust advisory still in effect until 9 p.m. We're going to continue to monitor the very latest for you as we go into the evening, but improving conditions in terms of that dust. So that threat and reduced visibility has certainly improved in just a few isolated storms that will hang on for about another hour, and then we'll gradually clear it out and cool it off into the evening. We will have the latest update for you coming up at 10 p.m. on ABC 7. Thanks for staying with us.